The more we learn about the school shooting in Florida, the more it appears that a Broward County invention may have played a role in what happened. And what am I talking about? In 2013, Broward County and their new school superintendent, Robert Runcie, had a novel idea: lower school expulsions and arrests by reducing police involvement. Sounds simple. They called it the Promise Program, preventing recidivism through opportunities, mentoring, intervention, support, and education. It's quite an acronym. You see, in 2011 into 2012 school year, Broward had the highest public school-related arrest record in the state. More than 1,000 kids in that year alone were arrested. The Obama administration Education Secretary Arne Duncan and Attorney General Eric Holder were so impressed by the Promise Plan that it inspired their own new national guidelines.
As it stands, far too many students across this country are diverted from the path to success by unnecessarily harsh discipline policies and practices that exclude them from school for really minor infractions. Too often, so-called zero-tolerance policies, however well-intentioned they might be, make students feel unwelcome in their own schools. They disrupt the learning process, and they can have significant and lasting negative effects on the long-term well-being of our young people.
Well, I'd say a violent kid whose outbursts are tolerated week after week, leading years later to a school shooting, also has lasting negative effects on young people and disrupts the learning process, Eric. But I digress. The Obama bureaucrats incentivized Broward to go even further, awarding the district nearly $54 million in grants to improve the lives of students in poverty and students of color. The standard to show that their lives are actually improving? Fewer arrests at schools, less police involvement, fewer disciplinary problems, at least on paper. So school administrators were basically paid to deal with student crime in-house and keep the cops off the premises. Had Nicholas Cruz been arrested or charged by police for bringing knives or bullets to school, or for other various infractions, threats and so forth, he might not have been able to buy that gun he used to kill 17 people. When CNN's Jake Tapper pressed Sheriff Scott Israel about his office's approach to student crimes, he said this.
What you're referring to is the Promise Program, and it's giving the school has the ability, under certain circumstances, not to call the police, not to get the police involved on misdemeanor offenses, and take care of it within the school. It's an excellent program.
Oh, what did we expect he was going to say? Until it helps a mass killer maintain a clean record up to the time of his shooting, that is. Broward County Sheriff Union President Jeff Bell revealed this to me last week.
They don't want the police officers making arrests on campus, and they don't want the drugs to be found on campus, and they don't want the warrants to be served on campus because it looks like there's bad stats at the school. So I place a lot of blame on the school board with that and some of the programs that they've initiated with the state attorney and the sheriff's office in the years past. For example, the Promise program. The problem is with them, when that program started, we took all discretion away from the law enforcement officers to effect an arrest if we choose to.
That was stunning. Now, Broward School Superintendent Robert Runcie, Sheriff Israel, and the Obama bureaucrats that created this perverse incentive to hide student criminality or downplay it have a lot of explaining to do. By turning Broward schools and those across the nation into these social justice petri dishes, they may have facilitated a lunatic, and their soft policies have turned our schools into soft targets. And that's the end.
I think as we go forward with reauthorization, there's so much we can do to shine a spotlight on excellence. You have so many classrooms, so many schools, so many school districts, so many states that are beating the odds. And I'm interested in two things. We're raising the bar for all students, and we're also closing the gap. And under No Child Left Behind, there are 50 ways to fail and almost no ways to succeed. And those that did succeed, we spotlight on them. We didn't learn from them. We didn't recognize their success. So I think we have a huge opportunity going forward to figure out those classrooms, those schools, those districts, those states that are beating the odds every single day. We can learn from them. We can give them additional resources. We can shine a spotlight on them. We can make sure that we're all benefiting from the tremendous difference that they're making in students' lives. So I think we have a fundamental change.
Will Representative-elect Deutsch please raise his right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations, you are now a member of the
U.S. Now, back to the first hour of the program, I asked a question. What would happen if you learned that background checks may not work because the data in the background check system isn't even there because of policies from the Obama and Holder Department of Justice to equalize racial populations in prison has resulted in many crimes and criminals not being arrested or reported because of the belief that there is a bias in the criminal justice system against minorities. What if you were to learn that local police departments, sheriff's offices, and school districts have been awarded grant money from the Obama administration for doing just that, looking the other way when certain crimes have taken place?
So let me just say, students that would bring weapons to school, yeah, there are consequences for it. That's firmly laid out in our student code of conduct. I mean, I hear these allegations, but I haven't actually seen any reports of that or anyone that have signed anything that would indicate that he had some
And let's move on right now to a very important issue in Broward County. Big money here, where the nation's 6th largest school district asked voters for permission to issue $800 million in bonds.
Well, the money would be used to renovate and repair crumbling schools and improve technology. 60% is required for this to pass, and it did more than that. 74% to 26%. Broward County voters overwhelmingly approving this. The bond money needed to improve and certainly to upgrade schools in Broward County. Roger Lucy live now in Fort Lauderdale with much more on this one. Roger.
Calvin, you know, the average age of the buildings in Broward County School District about 27 years old. So as you said, this money is going to be used to renovate and repair some of these crumbling schools, upgrade safety and security systems, buy new computers and other educational technology, about $80 million worth of that stuff. Let's show you, though, how this is going to affect taxpayers in Broward County. It will cost for the average home, about $225,000, valued at $225,000. It'll cost that homeowner about $50 more per year. Now, before you say, wow, that's a lot of money, consider this. The school district points out that that is about $127 less than you were paying in school property taxes 7 years ago. Let's come back out here and explain that. You know, the biggest challenge that district officials had in getting this bond passed was convincing voters that this is a new day in Broward County, that its history of corruption and mismanagement, particularly in school financing, school construction financing, is over. And we spoke with the superintendent a short time ago, who wanted to assure voters that this money will be used wisely.
His problem is we could provide services perfectly if the individual is still able to go out and buy a semi-automatic weapon. That becomes a major hole in anything that we could possibly do, and so that's got to be fixed.
Just as the school day was ending, the shooting started. This cell phone video captured the gunfire and the screams of the high school students trapped inside their classrooms.
I'm coming out to the east side with the casualty and ambulance standing by critical.
The sight of what's become an all too familiar panic of students fleeing hands raised in single file, only matched by the images of armed tactical police racing into the building looking for the gunman. From the air, emergency crews could be seen tending to the wounded, dressing their wounds.
Coming out with one injured person, keep shot.
Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel.
We've had approximately 14 people transported to the hospitals with varying injuries.
The description of the subject is going to be a white male, last name wearing a burgundy shirt.
The sheriff says the alleged gunman was captured off campus. The scene surrounded by police being placed into custody.
There's the guy being put back in the car.
Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School freshman and other victims as the gunman was just outside the building. When the lockdown was over, distraught parents raced to the scene. Even more emotional teenagers relieved to be outside. School Superintendent Robert Runcie.
It's a horrific situation.
It's been just over a year since the shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, that left 17 dead and another 17 people injured. On Valentine's Day, marking exactly 1 year since the tragedy occurred, many schools across the state, as well as lawmakers on the House floor, held a moment of silence to honor the victims of the tragedy. Despite the time that has passed since then, Florida is still feeling the political effects of the shooting. The governor's office, now under control of newly elected Governor Ron DeSantis, has filed a formal request with the Florida Supreme Court to create a statewide grand jury to investigate all school districts in the state and determine whether or not they have been violating state law and not meeting mandated safety standards. Although the statewide grand jury would be investigating all counties, DeSantis has made it clear that he is targeting Broward School Superintendent Robert Runcie with this move.
So, have had grave concerns with the school board and the superintendent of the school district here. I've been asked to potentially suspend the superintendent, just as I did the sheriff. The problem is that I don't have the authority to do that for an official who is appointed.
Right now, hundreds of Broward County school buildings are in desperate need of new roofs.
Yeah, voters approved the money for these repairs years ago. So now taxpayers want to know why those repairs are nowhere near to being complete. Look, with Insider Onward is live in Fort Lauderdale, where school board members are in a workshop to discuss this very issue. Syra.
So back in 2014, Broward voters approved $800 million to go towards crumbling schools, specifically the roofs. Well, 6 years later, more than 200 roofs are still in dire need of repair, and we're already over budget.
We have schools that people are sick in it because the roofs aren't done, the air conditioning components aren't done.
What is taking so long? A lot of answers to that question brought up in Tuesday's school board workshop, but not as many solutions.
Right now we have 5 to 6 firms that have a good experience working with Broward County schools on their roofing program.
Only 5 or 6 construction companies trying to complete 17 million square feet of roofing. That's 308 football fields worth of roof repairs and replacements.
Sitting on the facilities task force for more than 8 years, there's a lot that's gone sideways.
The public comment portion of the workshop calling it a bad process with failed planning. Area contractors chiming in to say they'd be happy to take on part of the project, but saying their companies were rejected in what they call a convoluted application process that's constantly shifting. Contractors active in the project saying they aren't getting paid in a timely fashion.
I put a payment in June, I got it in November.
Somebody has to take responsibility for that and find a way to fix that, because again, people aren't going to come work for us.
Taxpayers questioning why some school construction projects are fast-tracked and quickly completed. But the roofing, part of what's called SMART program renovations, doesn't seem to be handled in a way that's, well, smart. Superintendent Robert Runcie saying he hopes to resolve the delays as quickly as possible. But quick solutions may not equate to fast construction.
We're not going to make this 2023 deadline.
And one point that was brought up multiple times in this workshop is that with work being done at the current pace with the current number of contractors working on these roofs, it's going to take another 10 years to finish all of these rooftop repairs and replacements. That's the latest live from Fort Lauderdale. Syra Onward, Local 10 News.
The impact of President Trump's attacks against our democracy and how they're felt by my kids and how they're felt by our kids, by a younger generation that's just beginning to vote, that's just beginning to lead. And so I asked my kids on our family group text, what they thought at this moment. And they responded almost immediately, and they told me what they were feeling and what their friends were feeling. And they confirmed the worst. Their faith in our democracy is shaken. One of my kids said, "Trump has made me feel like our country is failing. He's taken away America's common sense." Another said, "If our democracy is fragile enough to be manipulated by the president, then I worry for our future as a country."